I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that you've signed up for this video series so that you can thrive in your own body, so that you can actually move in deeper into your own cells and increase your intelligence and your consciousness. Because as you do that year after year, as you adopt these habits day after day, what happens is you actually age in a very deep integrity. You age with the wisdom of the yogis. And this isn't something to be taken lightly. Right now, like the leading causes of chronic disease are the diseases of stagnation, the new SDs, right? And then the massive category of diseases around autoimmune. And a lot of this is just based on habits. So as we adopt new habits, as we adopt the habits of yogis, as we start to understand some of the basic philosophy of Ayurveda, which is the science behind the yogic health system, we start to get like, oh my gosh, I'm getting smarter. And as I get smarter, I make better decisions. And as I make better decisions, my whole life gets better. And that's really what this is all about. So as I've learned Ayurveda over the years, and I've been studying Ayurveda since I was about 24 years old, I'm now 43 years old. And I just noticed in my own body and in my own life, I keep getting smarter. And one of the biggest benefits for me of living an Ayurvedic lifestyle, of learning Ayurveda as I grow each year, is that I get to design the life I want. I get to design my life through actually designing the habits I want, designing the goals and the dreams I want. And a lot of that is based on this deep cellular integrity. Most people right now are overscheduled, they're inefficient, and they're tired. They're stuck in outdated habits. They're stuck in the habits of our diseases of a sedentary culture, our diseases of this sort of go, 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 perpetual growth without pulsating into rest culture, right? We're overtired, we have fast food, we have fast-paced lives, and yet like deep down, we're not spending our time the way we want to be spending our time. We're often not eating the food we want to be eating. We're often not even teaching our children what they should know, right? And these are massive problems. If you think about like, how am I going to design my life? How am I currently designing my life? And is it in integrity with what I really want? And you find like, no, then Ayurveda is a really great place to start. You get to start in yourself. You get to start in your own body, and you get to start to take control of your space, of your time, of your metabolism, right? Of how you flow throughout the day, and whether you experience stress or whether you experience ease. That's all under your control. So as you begin to learn more about Ayurveda, you're going to start to find like, wow, I'm smarter. Like I'm living smarter. I'm being smarter. I'm no longer overscheduling myself. I'm no longer eating foods which I cannot metabolize, and therefore I carry around as waste in my physiology. I'm no longer having conversations that aren't interesting to me because I realize that those affect my senses, and then that affects my mind, and that affects my thoughts and my emotions, and that actually affects my actions. So I'm going to become much more highly selective as a human being. And that process of becoming more selective is this process of designing the life you want. Ayurveda holds the key to start to be able to understand, to be able to start to expand your perspective and to get a system of thinking, a system that's very much delineated into microsystems, so that you can understand, first of all, your own energy cycles, your own metabolic cycles, your own mental emotional cycles, so you can move into your own constitution. So you can actually own your physiology cellularly and optimize, knowing that you and me, while we have a lot in common as Homo sapiens, we also have differences in our body types, in our mental and emotional types. And the more we get to know ourselves, the more we can optimize who we are. So until you've done that work, it's really hard to design the life you want and to design the habits that will get you to the life that you want. Another massive, massive benefit for me from living Ayurveda is designing your dream life. Because once you're in the body you want, and once you've actually, optimized your physiology and your metabolism and your constitution, you actually get much more aware of how you are in relationship to your dreams. What happens here is that your intuition is much more turned on. You're much more aware. And the reason is because you've actually detoxed a lot of the gunk and goo out of your physical body and also out of your mental and emotional body. So now you actually have access to your intuitional body. The yogis call that the Vijnana Maya Kosha. And when you have access to your intuitional body, you start to get that like, oh, I can do this life how I want. I get to live the life of my dreams. I actually can intuit now and sense what my dreams are. A lot of people don't even know what they're aiming for. So of course they're spending their time inefficiently. Of course they're running their body in inefficient habits, right? Because they don't even know where they want to get to by when. When you have that on a timeline, you think of like, how few actions before I get there? And for me, like we're shooting this in my condo in Mexico. I've got my daughter right here on the couch. She's crocheting. Ray, my cameraman back here. We have this incredible view of the ocean, like right out the window. This didn't just happen. This happened because I took the time to know this life. And that is the meaning of Ayurveda. Ayur means life. And Veda is to know, is to study. How does the fabric of life work? How does the fabric of your physiology work? What happens when you unpeel the mask of the physiology and see what's running through your mental body, through your emotional body, through your intuitive body, and you start to detoxify any kind of confusion in those spaces or any outdated patterns, any ancestral emotional baggage, you clear that out. And as you do, you get much more access to your power, the power of your constitution, the power of your love, right? The power of your insight. And as that happens, you start to access your dreams, and you know because you redesigned your body, you start to know how to redesign your life so that you're living the life you want, so that you're spending time the way that you want to spend time. When I started studying Ayurveda, I was about a size 12 to 14. When I graduated Ayurveda school, I was a size 12. Now I'm about a size 8, and size 8 feels great. Right? And it's just great for me, right? I don't know what your optimal size or body weight or shape is, or how much strength and integrity you want. How do you want to design your physiology? But Ayurveda holds the key to that, right? Is if you can actually get to know, okay, at this phase of my life, I want to experience this much energy. I want to have this much body mass. I want to have this much musculature. I want this kind of density in my bones. And you start to get the key of I'm in the driver's seat to get to design myself. And I do that every day through these micro habits. And we'll talk a little bit about the micro habits later in the video series. For me, dropping from a size 12 to a size 8 was never about looking good for other people. I really don't care that much what other people think of me. It was all about how I felt in my own skin. And I am a paddleboarder, and I surf here, and we don't use wetsuits here, it's too warm. So I'm in a bikini almost every day that I'm in Mexico. And I just wanted to feel good. I just wanted to feel good on my paddleboard. I didn't want to have to hide my body. And for me, how we look, or what size we are, or how much body weight we're carrying, to me it has nothing to do with the external in. It has everything to do with feeling amazing in our own skin. And that's something I want for everyone. It's something I've seen. I've coached so many people through transformations where they start to move deeper and deeper into their own skin and become vibrant from the inside out. And when that happens, the most amazing thing happens. The person's heart becomes more accessible. Their care, their love becomes more accessible. They're no longer hiding themselves, but now they're actually available, accessible to connect with. And to me, that's what this life is all about. That's what Ayurveda, or knowing this life, is all about. So if we're hiding or protecting or not comfortable in our own skin, we really want to look at that and be like, okay, that's not going to go away until I know myself more deeply, until I start to get to understand how this thing works, how this physiology works. And when I get that, I get smarter, and I'll live longer, and I'll feel happy and healthier each day, but I'll also get to connect with people more deeply. And to me, that is so beautiful. Often when people are introduced to Ayurveda, they're, I'm a Vata or Pitta or Kapha, and Vatas can't eat this and can eat this, and Kaphas can't eat this and can eat this. And we get these rules. And I just want to say that's really missing the mark. I eat whatever I want. You can ask my 9-year-old and she will let you know. I eat whatever I want. I don't restrict what I eat. I eat what makes my body feel great. And that's evolved over time. That didn't come to me all at once. It wasn't just like I came out of Ayurveda school and was, totally set. But what I found over time of teaching Ayurveda the last 15 years is that I help people much more rapidly than I learned. Learn how to optimize their physiology and eat intuitively, empower their own metabolism, get stronger in their own, how they optimize their own metabolism and understand their metabolic type according to Ayurveda. And when they know that, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I can cooperate with myself. And when you do that, you end up shifting your habits a bit. It starts to shift your cravings, and you crave food that's better and better for you. It doesn't mean you won't still go, eat whatever you want occasionally. That's a little bit not what you really want, but everyone else is eating it. You'll be able to do that because your metabolism is so much stronger. Now, I do want to say I'm going to do a little training on that in this series, and also a little training on how to actually space when you're eating that will stoke your metabolic fire. So many people focus on what they're eating. Ayurveda inherently and primarily focuses more on the when than the what. And in doing so, we start to optimize our fat metabolism. And when we optimize our fat metabolism, we optimize our ability to burn toxins so that we're not storing stuff. Many of you may have heard the emotions, the emotional toxicity that gets stored in the fat tissue, right? And that's one of the biggest causes of the emotional side of obesity is our emotional body is holding on to past hurts. As we start to metabolize our deeper fat, we start to release some of these deeper emotions. And as that happens, we start to realize that a lot of that stuff we were holding on to, it's just not ours. And as we let it go, we actually start to discover who we are now, what we want now, what we're interested in now. And as that happens, the whole world becomes so much more vibrant and alive and awake. Another massive benefit that I've noticed from learning Ayurveda is my mental capacity and my mental clarity are increasing each year. I have a lot of drive and a lot of ambition, you might say. And so I noticed that, and I've always had that. That's always been there. I can actually read report cards from my 5th grade teacher, like, Katie is ambitious, right? And that hasn't gone away, but what's come, the more I've started to understand and optimize my habits and my lifestyle according to the basic principles and theories of Ayurveda, the foundational principles, the more I get to know those each year and practice those each year, the more I find like, wow, I'm getting smarter and more easily. I work a lot with other CEOs and different masterminds at businesses the same size as Yoga Healer, and I noticed that this isn't common. This isn't common with other ambitious adults. A lot of other ambitious adults have habits that actually create emotional and mental cloudiness, confusion even. So then they are juggling too many things, and then they're ending up back in that overscheduled and too much going on and not in control of their time and not control often of their money because people will overspend, right? But what I find each year is that I invest more, both personally in myself and also to grow financially, right? I invest more time in my family. I invest more time in the things that are most important to me, and a lot of that is like spending time in the ocean each day, or when I'm back in the Tetons in the mountains each day, right? So there's a way that we can earn more. There's a way that we can invest more intelligently, both in ourselves and also in our accounts, right? That reflect our values. And a lot of that has to come from increasing your mental capacity, being smarter. So I just want you to ask yourself, like, am I getting smarter? Am I getting into deeper energy integrity? Am I getting stronger? Am I sleeping deeper each year? Because if I'm not, there's some things I need to dial in right now, and that's where we're going to go next. As we learn anything, we might notice that we want to talk about it. We want other people to be learning the same things. And this is actually a way of learning faster, of learning smarter. And so what I've done in all of the ways that I've worked is I've noticed that if I actually bring together a community of peers, right? If I actually decide, like, who else is learning this right now? And can I connect with the other people that are learning this right now? That actually makes it much more easy to learn. So having a supportive community of peers that will become your closest friends, that actually helps you learn faster. So when you start to learn Ayurveda, pay attention to who else is learning Ayurveda. Pay attention to who else is interested. Start talking about it. And you'll notice that you have a place that you can show up with your authentic interests. They don't have to water it down or dumb it down, but you can actually become raised up by other people. So as I know in my own path, as I started to learn Ayurveda, I started to become more attuned to other people that knew Ayurveda. And when you hang out with other people that know Ayurveda or know yoga, really deeply, what happens is their insights to you, their feedback to you, your casual conversations with them, instead of being at this level of your interest, they're at this level of your interest. And you just can't wait to connect again. And that's how you know you're on the path. That's how you know you are knowing this life, you are living this life, is you're in more interesting conversations all the time that are bringing you deeper into your own integrity and deeper into a more conscious community. Another benefit of knowing Ayurveda is that you get to heal your ancestral patterns. And sometimes these patterns are lurking in the background. We may have an idea, we may have a feeling towards a parent or a grandparent or even a great-grandparent, and we may have a sense of like, ooh, I've got some of that in me. Right? And some of it might be really positive and some of it might be really negative. But to get to know exactly how cellularly you are holding the ancestral memory, and is it integrated in you, or is it kind of separated in you? Are there things in you that you're like, doesn't feel like mine, and it's taking up room, and it's kind of negative, and it brings me down? And, you know, an example of this, we've already talked a little bit about food in this and weight in this, but it can actually really come in terms of weight. I had this realization as I did some of my own ancestral healing work that I have a grandfather from Russia, and he would tell us bedtime stories growing up. Such a sweet man, and he would tell us the stories of his childhood, which was he was basically a starving boy in Russia, and him and his friends they would jump on trains to try to get cover some ground to then jump off the train, go into the forest to hunt wild boar. And all of these crazy things happened on those adventures with bands of boys who were all more or less kicked out of their homes because they were old enough to figure out how to find food, because there wasn't enough food at home. So my grandfather moved to the United States, and he started a business with a family member and became established and actually had stability, financial stability, was able to put enough food on the table to provide for his family plus a little more. And so he started to pack on these pounds. And I noticed in myself, and this came with the years of going from a size 12 to a size 8, that in there were these progressions where I started to realize that there were things I was holding on to that weren't mine. And one of those things was I would be like Grandpa Gilbert, and I'd sit down, Grandpa Albert, I have a Grandpa Gilbert and Grandpa Albert. I would sit down to a meal and I'd be like, and I would eat and eat and eat until I felt too full, right? And when I realized with love in my heart, I'm like, oh, this was his pattern and this was his celebration. This was his experience, that he'd made it, right? That he was living the life. That was his dream, to have more than enough. But that was not my dream. Like, I grew up in the land of plenty. I have different dreams. Right? And so when I was able to realize that and honor him and celebrate with him that experience, all those cravings in my own body to eat more than my digestive fire wanted, those just went right away. So I don't know what your ancestral patterns are, but I do know you have them. And I do know that if you haven't completely processed them and are just actually completely loving back to your ancestry, that there's parts of you that aren't integrated. So as you get to study Ayurveda and live into Ayurveda, you'll start to integrate. And as you do, you'll feel more love, and you'll feel more and more appreciation for not just your own ancestral history, but for our shared human ancestral history, even for our shared planetary history as conscious organisms here. And as that happens, you get to actually experience more and more bliss. So they say in Ayurveda, the question is, how much bliss do you want to feel? It's up to you. Okay, so next in the video, we're going to get into the big question, which is, do you have Amma? Because if you have Amma, which is toxicity in your physical body or your mental body or your emotional body, you're not going to feel as good. It's going to be really harder to tap into the benefits of being a human being. So one of the first questions you want to ask yourself as you start to learn Ayurveda is, am I carrying toxicity? Like, do I have what we call Amma in Ayurveda? And Amma falls under a number of different types. There's physical, there's mental, and there's emotional. There's also in many ways ancestral Amma and relational Amma. But the main types are physical, mental, and emotional. So physical Amma is like when you wake up in the morning and you stick out your tongue and it's like white and you scrape it off and you're like, there's gunk on it. That's a physical sign of Amma. When you wake up in the morning and if you feel stiff and kind of heavy, that's a physical Amma. Whereas what's going on in your mind when you wake up, if you wake up and your thoughts are like, I've got a lot to do today, I'm not that excited about it, that's a mental Amma. A lot of people don't know that. They think that's just how life is. But in Ayurveda, that's a pathogenesis. There's something wrong. There's something off, because we should naturally wake up and be like, stoked, sweet, I get to live a whole new day, right? Like that's the natural energy of arising. It's like, wow, it's the calm before the dawn. I get to witness the dawning of a new day. So you can tell too that, wow, that really links to the emotional Amma, right? Because if you wake up and you're sort of not that excited about your day, there's the emotion of like feeling a little weighed down and a little heavy. And those are the emotions of Ammas. It feels like there's a bit of a weight on you. There can also be a lot of confusion. You're confused about what you want to do. You're confused about the dreams that you have in your life, right? What you really want to be doing with your energy and your time and your purpose. So all of that falls under the category of Amma. And if you have a lot of Amma and you're like, oh my gosh, Kate, stop. Don't stop talking about this. Like, give me hope. The hope is really in understanding Agni. And these are like inverse relationship to each other. So Agni is your digestive fire. Okay, that's what that means. This is the power of your digestion. And it lives right in the place where you get hungry. They say if you worship Agni Vesa, or the power of your own digestion in Ayurveda, it's the size of your thumb, right? Not so big. That lives right in that place that you get hungry. Now, the closer relationship you have with your Agni, the more the symptoms of Amma start to go away. People that have Amma or have these toxins, what happens is when you have Amma, you actually crave unhealthier food. You actually eat often emotionally, like you want to make yourself happy, so you pop in an espresso or a pop of chocolate or whatever it is for you, a glass of wine, right? You're actually craving an experience, an emotional experience. So you put something in your pie hole, which really isn't the relationship of, I call this the pie hole, right? That's not really in right relationship. And right relationship is like, my hunger is telling me to eat because we need more energy and more fuel because we're ready to burn. We're ready to burn strong. And I know for me on my path of studying Ayurveda, I was like, wow, I should have learned that when I was my daughter's age, who's sitting down here macrameing. And I should have learned this and she's 9. Did you already know this, to only eat when you're hungry? She's nodding her head, like, duh, who doesn't know this? Ayurveda often in the beginning, I call it like the duh series. Like, duh, eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're, don't eat for emotional reasons. But so many of us do. So many of us are in a cycle of eating throughout the day, of actually we call meal stacking, where there's something in your digestive tract and somewhere it's maybe cleared your stomach, it's in your small intestine, and you eat again. You don't allow hours of time between your meals to digest and absorb. And a lot of that's coming from mental and emotional reasons. It's not coming, and it's coming from confusion too, of like just not clearing those levels of Amma out so that you can be in touch with your digestive fire. So what happens with Amma is that we actually will start to develop digestive issues. We'll be burping or farting, or we'll get really like bloated, extended, or our body will try to clear everything out, and that can happen through loose stools. Can also have hyperacidity. We can have mucus, like we eat and our body produces a lot of mucus. We crave foods that we know are not good for us. We crave foods we know are coming from the mind. Right? It's not coming from the physical body saying like, that will help me thrive. It's coming from the mental, emotional Amma or toxicity that's saying like, self-perpetuate this problem. So if you have Amma, the number one thing you want to learn about right now is your Agni. Like, hey, how do I stoke my Agni? And I have the Amma and Agni checklist that you'll get as part of the series. There's a list of things to get your Agni in tip-top shape. I would print that out and I would pin that to the fridge. What we're going to get into in the next video is a bit about the when to eat, because the when to eat really helps you get your Agni in tip-top shape. So a few tips on getting your Agni into tip-top shape is, one of the first things is how to just get yourself to eat 2 to 3 times a day and stop Stop stacking your meals and start spacing your meals. And we'll get into that in the next video. Another thing is just to start to eat on a schedule. Preferably have that schedule of time in daylight hours. I know that can be hard if you're in the northern climate in wintertime or the southern climate in summertime, but see if you can see like, okay, can I get this into when there's natural light in my environment? Because we are smart monkeys, right? We come from a diurnal species, not a nocturnal species. So as that, we're used to eating when it's light. It's better and easier for our physiology. So again, eating just a few times a day, eating on a schedule, having only water between meals, which I know for a lot of people is hard because you're sipping sugar water, or you're sipping caffeinated milky beverages or whatnot, but just getting on just water between meals. I promise you can make it to the next meal. And when you do, you start to metabolize your fat. And as you metabolize your fat, you're metabolizing your Amma, and you'll start to notice each day you're getting a little more mental clarity. You're getting a little bit more like emotionally like happy, feeling love and joy and inspired. I coach thousands of people with this, and they notice that like, I'm just way more in love with life in general. It's kind of weird. I'm like, no, it's kind of normal. You can get used to that. It's good. It's okay. You'll love it. Make your main meal in the daylight hours. These things help your Agni get stronger. So even like closer to the middle of the day, the better. And then you want to have a cutoff time. Like, when are you done eating for the day? And that can help so much that you give your digestive fire a time to take a break, right? And so if we just look at a clock and say your last time you put something in your pie hole was 6 p.m. We'll make this a shorter one. And this is 12. Like, let your body let it take a break. Let it be at least 13 hours. So let your body take a break then. And you might then break your fast at 7 a.m. I'm going to go way more into detail in the next video and show you how to actually extend that time, because it'll lead to even more clarity. So if you're already at 13, this is like one of the first benchmarks. Congratulations, awesome. I'll teach you how to turn that up a notch, because when you do, anytime you refine your Agni at the next level, you burn through the next level of Amma. It is like unpeeling an onion. And you can go deeper and deeper into your own integrity. And as you do so, you'll have more energy, you'll have more mental capacity, you'll have much more emotional capacity, and you'll start to realize you're more in access with your own dreams. You're able to intuit at a whole other level, meaning your intuition is thriving and leading your life. And as that happens, you actually have dreams that you couldn't have had when the Amma was in the way. Because remember what Amma does? Amma creates confusion. The reason it creates confusion is it blocks the flow of consciousness, and consciousness carries intelligence. Agni is ignite. It ignites consciousness. It ignites your intelligence. It ignites your interconnectivity. So I hope this has been helpful. Befriend your Agni, ignite your Amma, so that you can have more energy, so that you can digest whatever you want to eat, so that you eliminate cravings for foods that your body isn't actually calling for, so that you let go of any joint pain that you have, which is basically digestive toxins stored in your joint tissue. These are all really good reasons to befriend your Agni and keep learning more about Ayurveda. This is just one little tiny piece of the big system, but it's the first one to start to learn about. If you don't have the kind of energy you want, or you get fatigued in the afternoon, or you're noticing that each year you don't have as much energy, it's a really good reason to start to pay attention to Ayurveda. If you have body weight concerns, or you don't feel like you're in integrity with yourself, that there's like too much over here and not enough in other places, those are all reasons to start to learn Ayurveda and start to learn from the inside out how to up-level yourself cellularly. And it all happens through this mental understanding, like you did today, and like we're going to do in video 2. So in video 2, I'm going to unlock a little bit more about how to optimize your physiology, a little bit about the when to eat versus what to eat. You're going to love it. So stay tuned for video 2.